Punch your ticket to the Spurs, the Cowboys, and all around the great Lone Star State. It's the Ticket Live.
All right. How about them Cowboys? I want to thank the Eagle fans for allowing me to have a career in the NFL. Thank you.
Drew Pearson.
Wow.
Cowboy great Drew Pearson going up to that mic in front of the Philly fans at the NFL draft and saying, "Oh yeah, you guys want to boo me? Thank you very much for helping me to have a fantastic career in the NFL." How about Drew going after those guys, Cal?
That's funny. That's funny, man. Trolling Philly fans. They come time to deserve it. They boo everything, man. They boo Santa Claus. They boo everybody.
They do boo everybody. Welcome to a special 10 o'clock hour of the Ticket Live. It's our draft special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services, a Ticket Live special made by our great partners there at AAA Auger Plumbing Services. Want to tell you about them. AAA Auger Plumbing Services, professional, reliable, and affordable for over 50 years and never a charge for coming out. AAA Auger, their website is AAA-Auger.com. Over this next hour, we're going to have the draft covered from what the Cowboys have done to what they're going to do. The big splash Houston's made. Also get insight from around the country. NFL Network's Jane Slater joins us live a little bit later in the 10 o'clock hour. She covers the Cowboys for the network. Damon Amendolara of the DA Show on CBS Sports also joins us. And later, we go one-on-one with former Cowboy, three-time world champ Chad Hennings. But while we've got a special 10 o'clock hour today, one thing that won't change is our 10 at 10. The 10 at 10 is presented by AAA Garcia Bell Bonds. Speaking of 10, no one knows numbers better when you might find yourself in trouble, more so than AAA Garcia Bell Bonds. 24/7, 3 locations, San Antonio, Hondo, and Kerrville. AAA Garcia Bell Bonds works hard to get your loved one out of jail, whether for traffic tickets, warrants, DUI, or any other type of violation. Offering free warrant checks, slow down payments, quick and discreet bail bonds. AAA Garcia Bail Bonds, license number 195, is the presenting sponsor for the 10 at 10. So, Cal, we thought it's draft time, and this is Cowboys country. Why not look at the top 10 drafts in Cowboys history? What do you say?
Okay,
interesting topic?
Let's do it.
Okay. Cowboy fans, feel free to tweet me and tell me how crazy I am or wrong I am after this at the Ticket Live. But here we go, 10 through 6 of the top 10 drafts in Cowboys history. Number 10, I'm going to go 2005. It's a draft class that included DeMarcus Ware, Marcus Spears, Chris Canty, and Jay Ratliff. Number 9, 2010. Des Bryant and Sean Lee came out of that draft. 2003 would be number 8. Terrence Newman, Jason Witten, Brady James among those guys. Draft class number 7. 1977, Tony Dorsett, Tony Hill, and a guy named Steve DeBerg, who didn't play for the Cowboys much, but ended up having success around the NFL. At number 6, 1975, Randy White, Hollywood Henderson, Bob Brunig, and Mike Hegman. So there I go, 10 through 6 of the Cowboys' best draft classes of all time. 10 is 2005, number 9 is 2010, number 8 is 2003, number 7 is 1977, number 6 is 1975. And you see on your TV side, you see the names that I just mentioned on the air a little while ago. You see them listed on your TV side there, Cal.
Okay, well, number 6, I wasn't even thought of then. Number 7, I was on Similac then. That was the year I was born. So I can't comment on those. But I'll tell you, I'm surprised here. Number 10 and 9, okay? You got Bryant and you got Lee. And we know Lee's been the guy that's kind of, here and there, healthy. I would say at least a draft with DeMarcus Ware has to be a little bit higher than that.
You think so?
Yeah, because you're talking about the all-time leading sack leader in Dallas. He just retired this year, signed a one-day contract with the Cowboys, a retired Cowboy. Going to be up in that Ring of Honor. We'll see about the Hall of Fame. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't know about first ballot, but he's a Hall of Famer in my book. But I would say definitely, I don't know if I could put a draft class with Dez in there higher than D. Ware. Dez's accomplishments of what he's done for the Cowboys. I mean, he's helped Jerry in the revenue department with jersey sales and everything else. But I don't know if his impact of yet. He's still got a lot of football to play. Hopefully, he stays healthy. But I don't know if his impact is as much as what Ware's is on the team or what he's done for Dallas. And think about this, though, Hector, too. With Ware, I mean, who did Ware ever have line up for help on the other side, with Dallas?
Marcus Spears, the guys that were
Right.
drafted in the same class as him, Marcus Spears, Jay Ratliff, and Chris Canty, which says it all.
Right.
You know?
So that's the only thing I would have probably done. Maybe put the class with Ware a little bit higher than Dez.
I hear you. And I think the only reason I put 2010 ahead of 2005 is maybe because Bryant and Lee's stories are still being written.
Okay.
If they can help deliver the Cowboys a Super Bowl, maybe that's why I'm thinking and I think the Cowboys will have a shot to play in the big game and win it here in the next 3-4 years while those guys are still in the league and still on the team. So I'm thinking, that's why I have it number 9. 5 through 1, here we go. Some of you are going to think I'm crazy for putting this class up this high already, especially this storied franchise's history. Number 5, 2016 draft, this past one, last year with Zeke Elliott, Dak Prescott, and Anthony Brown, a corner who won any other rookie class would have been a steal. Number 4, 1992, it brought him Kevin Smith, Robert Jones, Jimmy Smith, who went on to great success with the Jacksonville Jags, and Darren Woodson, cornerstones of that 1990 of that 3-time Super Bowl championship team. Number 3, 1991, Russell Maryland, Alvin Harper, Dixon Edwards, Eric Williams, Leon Lett, Larry Brown. Enough said if you follow those 90s Cowboys. Number 2, 1989, Troy Aikman, Darryl Johnston, Tony Tolbert. Again, enough said. Number 1, not going to beat this one. 1964, Roger Staubach, Mel Renfro, Bob Hayes.
Okay. Let me look at that. Okay, that's Williams, Lett, Brown. Okay, that one is...
Those 90s drafts and 89 drafts are pretty ridiculous in terms of building that team.
Where's that Emmett one at? Where's that?
Emmett got drafted in 1990. And relatively speaking, compared to 92, 91, and 89, not a fantastic draft class, even though they picked him at 17 in 1990 overall.
First of all, I don't think you're crazy having this current last draft class as high as you do. You had him at 5?
I had him at 5. And I didn't mention Jalen Smith, who could be an absolute stud, hurt all of last year.
Yeah. I think that you, honestly, and I know you're predicating this off of, I'm pretty sure, it's Super Bowl class, who contributed to Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I will say just focusing on that 5th spot with Zeke, with Elliott, and you got to look at where the Cowboys kind of, where they were, kind of trying to take that and the impact. They deliver 1, and I know those 90s had 3, but if they deliver that 1, I think you can catapult that class to maybe number 2 or 1. Because look at this, you're talking about a quarterback, regardless what round he was taken, you're talking about a quarterback and a running back that is really the cornerstone and probably going to be the leaders going forward in this franchise for the next 10 or 15 if health permits. So I'm very, people know how I feel about the Cowboys, but I'm very high on that class when you're able to take 2 guys like that. So I don't think you're crazy putting up there at 5 already.
Our 10 at 10 was presented by AAA Garcia Bell Bonds. No one knows numbers better when you might be in trouble more so than AAA Garcia Bell Bonds. 24/7, 3 locations, San Antonio, Hondo, and Kerrville. AAA Garcia Bell Bonds works hard to get your loved one out of jail, whether for traffic tickets, warrants, DUI, or any other type of violation. Offering free warrant checks, low down payment plans, quick and discreet bail bonds. AAA Garcia Bell Bonds, license number 195, the presenting sponsor for the 10 at 10. We're back right after this.
The Ticket Live.
All right, welcome back to the Ticket Live Draft Specials. We tell you about the sports grind.
Yes, check us out on the sports grind Monday through Friday on Ticket 760, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Rudy J, Salami, myself, Calvin. And if you miss any of the episodes, you can go download the podcast through sportsgrindentertainment.com.
This is a Ticket Live Draft Special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services. We're going to talk plenty more Cowboys over these next 50 minutes. But right now, Cal, let's talk Texans and what they've done through these first 3 rounds. Kind of the newsmakers of the draft, if you will. We'll talk about what they did in round number 1. By now, most of you know what they were able to do on that opening night of the draft. But in last night's round 2, they were able to pick linebacker Zach Cunningham. He's a guy out of Vanderbilt, so a good pick for the Texans there. In the 3rd round, they took a guy a lot of fans around here are very familiar with, Texas running back Deontay Foreman. So Foreman in the 3rd round, Zach Cunningham, a linebacker out of Vanderbilt in the 2nd round. And in the 1st round, we know by now, Deshaun Watson trading up to get the national championship quarterback from Clemson. So far, I would say, Cal, as you look at Deshaun Watson's numbers on the TV side, what a fantastic get by the Texans. And I'm just wondering if I'm being kind of falling into the trap of the sexy headline. But I think what they were able to do there, given their history at quarterback, was absolutely phenomenal.
Yes, I agree. I think this is the first time, and I did want to start with Deshaun on their draft. I think this is the first time Texas fans can feel excited that they truly got a potential and most likely going to end up being a true franchise quarterback. Not a bridge quarterback, not a journeyman, okay, but a true franchise quarterback. And the way they moved up to go ahead and get him. Now, I will say this. I really said before the draft that I didn't think any of these quarterbacks were walking into a Dak-like situation, okay? Meaning that, you know, an O-line, the running game, a future Hall of Fame tight end. But I will say this. Deshaun is walking into, it's the closest thing to that, but I would like to compare it probably more into a Ben Roethlisberger situation when Ben came out of college and walked into the Pittsburgh Steelers in a good, solid defense, dominated defense, took that team to the Super Bowl in the second year or so. I'm not going to put that pressure on Deshaun Watson because this is what I believe. You got to keep in mind that everything I'm hearing from Smith, their GM, and McNair, the ownership, whether it's just lip service PR, they're still confident in Savage, okay? And Bill O'Brien took this guy a few years ago at that slot where they could have had Carr. They could have got Clowney and Carr in that same draft, but he chose to go ahead and take Savage, which has been more of a project. This is where I see it. Savage hasn't been a full-time starter in this league. Deshaun Watson is going to come into OTAs. This is a very, people have to remember too, Bill O'Brien's system is a very complex offensive system. But I think Deshaun Watson is up to it. Bill O'Brien coaches you hard. He gets on you. I think he's also become a little bit spoiled because he got used to coaching Tom Brady all those years. Right. Okay? But Deshaun Watson, no, the Texans should be very excited because Deshaun's walking into a good defense. We'll get to their second round here, the second and third round picks. But I think he's walking in a situation to where, look, he might not be day one starter, but you move up those spots to go, there's a good chance unless Savage just blows everybody out of the water that you're going to see Deshaun Watson on that field sometime next year. But for sure, the following season, he'll be the full-time starter. But there's a good chance he could beat Savage out in camp.
And funny you mentioned that. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson and how quickly he can make an impact. We're going to talk about that in our Thomas J. Henry closing arguments when we discuss Watson and the Texans this coming season. You mentioned, Cal, you wanted to get to the Texans' second and third round picks. Deontay Foreman, a name that's very, very well known to a lot of fans around here, running back out of Texas.
Yes, I know Salami is very high on Deontay Foreman. He had him in one of his top 5 running backs on the big board. Gets to stay in the state of Texas. You know, it came out this week that Deontay Foreman had suffered a tragedy during last season, losing his kid, his child was losing his child, had to go through that, still had a heck of a season at UT. But getting to stay in the state of Texas in the running game, because I really think, you know, last year when Houston went out and spent all this money and got Brock Osweiler, a lot of that chunk of money was with Lamar Miller too as well.
Yes.
I like Lamar Miller, but Deontay Foreman is more of that physical bruiser back that can go and carry, eat the clock up, 20, 25, 30 carries a game. I think Deontay Foreman can be that guy. And right there, if you look at a little page out of Stephen Jones in Cowboys book, let's get our 2 cornerstones, possibly Deontay Foreman and Deshaun Watson as our cornerstone at the running back and the quarterback position going forward. So Smith, I've been one of his biggest critics down here in this region. I think he's gotten a lot of years, and he's missed on some things, put that franchise in some bad situations, but I definitely like what they're doing. Their second round pick with the linebacker of Vanderbilt, Zach, I've seen him play a little bit, but I was more shocked that I thought they would probably go secondary or corner at their second pick due to the fact of Demps, the guys that they lost to Jacksonville, some of their secondary got picked off this offseason due to free agency. I thought with this being so deep in corner and safety that they probably would have went that direction, second round, but they got a linebacker and Zach Cunningham out of Vanderbilt.
And we're going to talk plenty of Cowboys here throughout this rest of the hour. Jane Slater from the NFL Network, who covers the Cowboys, is going to join us live. She's actually doing some hits for the NFL Network, but don't change the channel, because Jane's going to join us a little bit later before 11 o'clock. So plenty of Cowboys takes in there. But for now, in case you were out fiestaing last night or just wanted to get to bed early on a Friday night, say about what the Cowboys did in rounds 2 and 3. You probably know what they did in round 1 on Thursday. They drafted 2 corners. Chidobe Awuzie out of Colorado is who they picked in the second round. In the third round, they took Jordan Lewis, a kid out of Michigan, also a cornerback. So when you take into account Taco Charlton, who, by the way, I don't know if you saw this picture, Cal, but the Cowboys tweeted out a picture of Taco holding a plate full of tacos.
Hey, Jerry's already started with a campaign. He's already working behind the scenes with a marketing deal. 4 or 5 sacks, everybody gets free tacos. By taco. Trust me, Jerry's already working with this, man.
So we're going to talk more about Jerry and Taco and the Cowboys draft later in the hour. For now, let's tell you that on KCWX, stay with us right after the show for Sports Weekly at 11. The great programming continues during the week when you can catch episodes of Hot in Cleveland at 4 and 4:30 every afternoon. And then at 5 and 5:30, the back-to-backs continue with How I Met Your Mother. Weeknights at 11 means Pawn Stars. This is a Ticket Live draft special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services on KCWX TV and Ticket 760 AM.
The Ticket Live.
Welcome back to the Ticket Live draft special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services. On a team full of characters, he stood out because, well, he wasn't much of one. No, instead, Chad Hennings just exemplified character. We caught up with the Air Force Academy grad after he gave a motivational speech at local school St. Mary's Hall recently.
Well, first of all, man of many talents. Not only can you give a powerful presentation, and not only were you a heck of a football player, but you look out for on-air folks when they're about to go on the air looking like idiots. I had a sticker on here, and Chad was like, you might want to remove that and put it back here. The message you had for the St. Mary's Hall community was a powerful one. What's it like for you to be able to speak to folks in not only San Antonio, but different communities, and to be able to spread your great message?
To me, that's my purpose now. I've been able to accomplish a lot of different things, but I've realized in life that it's, a person's legacy is not about the things they've accomplished, it's about the people you've been able to impact. And for me, that's my personal mission. It's to get out to talk to corporations, talk to kids, talk to individuals, and just talk about the importance of identity, of character, of, grit, determination, hard work, all those things that, separate the good from the great.
One of the things that really stuck out to me that you said in there was when learning to plow.
Yeah.
Your dad, your grandfather said, pick an object in the distance and then kind of take us through, because you're going to tell it better than I can. But just a great message behind the story you told in there of picking an object in the distance and going toward it.
Yeah, that was the thing, is that if you want to plow a straight furrow in a field, you pick a fixed object on the end of the field, fence post, maybe a tree, a building, and you head towards that. You don't plow looking over your shoulder, because you're going to veer to the left and to the right. And if you come across an object, a rock in the field, you deviate around it, but you pick right up where you left off. And the life lessons in that are, that fixed point at the end of the field, that's where you want to be, your legacy, where you want to be at the end of your life. You don't look at past mistakes. You don't look over your shoulder. When life happens, the rock and the furrow, you deviate around it. You keep going forward and you pick yourself up right where you left off, and to continue to pursue that aspect of what that fixed point's your legacy, where you want to be.
When speaking in front of the crowd, you kind of had to stop a little bit when you talked about your days with the Cowboys, and you said, wait a minute, you guys weren't born yet when we were doing our thing. What's that like for you to know that it's, relatively speaking, it's not that long ago, but we do have young adults now who never got to see a Chad Hennings and those 90s Cowboys play?
And to me, that's the importance, because I can remember going in and talking to audiences when I was with the Cowboys, young kids, and I talk about my heroes like Roger Staubach, and they, who? I mean, you don't know Roger Staubach? But it's the same thing. Each generation has their own heroes, but truly what lasts through that is, the impact that you have on people. So for me, they may not know who I was with the Cowboys, but what I personally take most pride in, they say, aren't you the guy that was in the Air Force, that served in the military prior to playing for the Cowboys? And for me, that means more.
Speaking of that, the commitment, Air Force, serving your country, fighter pilots. When you think of what you've been able to do outside of football, where does football fit into everything that you've done, including what you're doing now?
Football, I think, gave me a platform, and it gave me an opportunity to grow, to test myself physically, emotionally, spiritually, in all aspects, to strive to be the better person, the best person that I could be. And, football is an enjoyable period of my life. I got an opportunity to play for America's team, played with, 5-6 Hall of Famers. Played for the Jones family, who has done so much for the nation, for the game, played for a variety of outstanding coaches. And all these individuals impacted my life in one form or fashion to be the man that I am today. So it was a great learning experience.
Now that you're a little bit removed from it, winning the 3 titles in the 4 years and being on one of the best teams to ever play, when you sit back and you think back to those days, what comes to mind?
Wow. Because I think for the fans, you know, in the early 90s, you get used to that. We got used to that as players, too. Didn't realize how talented we were because we were a bunch of, you know, at the time, talented guys, but we weren't the guys weren't the Hall of Famers. They weren't the All-Pros. We never won a Super Bowl. So achieving that success was those universal truths, working hard to be your best self every day, to put the time in, to team comes first, you know, whatever, to go out and to just accomplish to win Super Bowls. And now you realize that the drought that the team has had, you realize how special those teams and that era was.
Your thoughts on the current Cowboys now as you watch them?
You know, I think that they got what it takes. You know, it's talent-wise, they need some defensive pass rushers and they need a little more defensive help, but I think they're fully capable of going the distance, and they could have done it last year too. But I'm the eternal optimist. We'll get back there.
You're a busy man. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
But congratulations on the fact that Outland winner, 3-time Super Bowl winner, and that's not what you're most known for. Appropriately enough, it's your service and what you've done. So congratulations on all that, Chad. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
And the draft is all about the Cowboys and every other team in the NFL picking guys that they hope are going to contribute for a while, a la Chad Hennings. And a thank you to Chad for joining us on the Ticket Live draft special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services.
Yeah, a nice piece. I think that they always tell you that the game of football is one sport that kind of, you know, you can simulate similarities, parallels to life. And I think his message being going out and giving his experience and encouraging message of keeping the focus on life and the grind, hats off to Chad. But I do kind of agree with him. I mean, Dallas is, you know, that's why I said when we did the 10 and 10, that class, I think we'll look back at this class last draft and say that's really, really special, because I do feel they are close. I mean, they got to do some work on the defensive end. I mean, you see that obviously with their first 3 picks in the draft, and we're going to see that. I think they got like 3 more picks left or so. But I do think is once they get that defense up to par, that this is a team definitely would be playing and competing for a Super Bowl, I think, honestly, within the next 2 years, 2 or 3 years max. Possibly could, I don't know if it's necessary, depending on how these guys pan out, if it would be next year, but definitely within the next 2 or 3 years, they should be playing in a Super Bowl.
Let's say about our legacy sponsor. Need home insurance? Jaime Elias has you covered. Need auto insurance? Jaime Elias has you covered. Need life insurance? Yep, Jaime Elias has you covered. For all your insurance needs, personal or business, only to call Jaime Elias, Farmers Agent, 462-7250, 462-7250. He'll take care of the rest. The Ticket Live Draft Special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services continues right after this.
The Ticket Live.
Well, this segment is brought to us by our friends at Huebner Sleep Center, here for your in-facility or at-home diagnostics, located at 9250 Huebner Road, Suite 202. They are open 6 days a week. Located at 9250 Huebner Road, Suite 202, open 6 days a week to help you sleep better and to help you feel better. Welcome to the Ticket Live Draft Special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services to break down what we've seen so far through these first 3 rounds of the NFL Draft. Let's bring in Damon Amendolara, host of the DA Show, a national show on CBS Sports Radio. You can also catch Damon on the NFL Network's Top 10 programs. DA, thanks for the time this morning, man. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Good morning. What's going on?
All right. Well, first of all, I know that what the Bears did on Thursday night has everybody going, what in the world? But is there anything beyond that that's really caught your eye through these first 3 nights, or first 2 nights and first 3 rounds of the NFL Draft?
Yeah, I think the Texans and the Chiefs moving up to get their quarterbacks were really interesting, because Deshaun Watson, to me, was the best quarterback in this draft. Obviously, Trubisky went number 2, but I didn't know if the Texans, I don't think a lot of people knew whether the Texans were that serious about going to get one of their quarterbacks. And so to move up, some people thought, oh, that's a steep price to pay, next year's number 1. Same thing being said about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Next year's number 1, tough to give that up. But to me, if you like those quarterbacks, you feel like those are your franchise guys, that is well worth the one that you give up next year. And frankly, you know, I think both of those guys could end up becoming very good franchise quarterbacks. And when you think about it, Tony Romo retiring, going to CBS for television might be the best thing that ever happened to the Texans. Because
Right.
without that, they don't have to move up to go get Deshaun Watson. But would you rather have 1 year of Tony Romo or 8 to 10 of Deshaun Watson? I really like what the Texans did there.
Hey, Damon, this is Calvin. I totally agree with you. The first day, the quarterbacks kind of took the limelight. But the other story I think that's coming out of the draft, if you look at what the rookie GM John Lynch is doing in San Francisco, he was fortunate enough for the last few years to sit in the war room with one of the top GMs in the game, in John Elway, and he played an integral part of getting him that job. But I know he got some kickback for, say, skipping the line, getting no experience, getting the gym. But speak of what you've seen John Lynch do the first couple of days for the 49ers in the draft.
Well, no matter what you feel about Reuben Foster at the end of the first round, and that inexperience you kind of talked about with John Lynch, you have to love his maneuver to move down one slot from 2 to 3 on night one and pick up draft picks in the process. He wasn't going to draft Mitch Trubisky. The only thing he wanted to do was get Solomon Thomas. He gets his guy at number 3 that he wanted at number 2 anyway and picks up bonus draft picks. Now, whether Reuben Foster turns into a star and a great value or not might grade out and might end up determining whether we look at this as a great draft for the Niners or just a very good one, et cetera, fair, mediocre, what have you. But the thing is with Reuben Foster, everybody agreed the guy has high first-round talent, top 10 talent, but he has the off-the-field issues, the altercation of this combine, and obviously some injury history as well. So if Reuben Foster becomes a Navarro Bowman type, a Patrick Willis type, a linebacker that can lock down your defense in San Francisco, and you got him at 31, plus you have Solomon Thomas, man, that's a steal. If Reuben Foster's concerns that scared everybody else away in the first 30 picks end up coming home to roost, it's a good draft because you get Thomas potentially, but it's not necessarily the steal unless Reuben Foster becomes one.
We're chatting with Damon Amendolara of the DA Show. You can follow Damon on Twitter at DA on CBS. Catch the DA Show on CBS Sports Radio. You can also catch Damon on the NFL Network's Top 10 programs.
Hi, Damon. This is Aaron. Just quick question. The first round is normally for the straight and narrow guys that you won't have troubles with. In the second round is normally those controversial characters there. So the whole Bengals trading up to get Joe Mixon, I guess, what is your reaction? What is your thought? And, what do you think was the thought process there to grab that guy who has he has character deflaws?
Yeah, Aaron, I think that the Cincinnati Bengals are now underneath that microscope, and you have to kind of hold their feet to the fire. Domestic violence has been a huge issue in the NFL now for the last couple of years, certainly since the Ray Rice incident. And now there's all attention, all eyes on those types of incidents and the teams that will draft them or employ those players. If Joe Mixon is honest, is candid, and is truthful, and the fact is that he keeps saying that he's a changed man, if he doesn't have another incident, you know what? The Bengals got to steal because he's a very, very good talent. He's certainly a second-round talent back, and if he becomes, one of those kind of workhorse running backs that everybody feels like his talent would suggest, and he doesn't get into more trouble, then obviously it's a good pick. The problem is, if he has one slip-up, the Bengals end up looking terrible. So it's kind of a high-risk, high-reward situation. I think the NFL sometimes is very hypocritical when it comes to domestic violence. They say they take it seriously. They say they don't want it anywhere around their league. And a guy like Joe Mixon comes up, and believe you me, it's not just the Bengals that would have drafted him. Probably any team would have drafted him, assuming that he dropped to where they thought it was worth it on their value board. So it's that hypocrisy that sometimes really bothers me about the NFL. They say one thing, but I feel like behind closed doors, they say other things.
And just a quick follow-up to that. I was surprised watching it that Dalvin Cook wasn't taken before Joe Mixon. So I guess what are your thoughts about that? Did it surprise you as much as probably me or someone watching, a bystander?
Dalvin Cook's real problem was the injury history, and everybody knows what type of player that he was at Florida State. Everybody knows the types of playmaker he is. But, the issue is in today's NFL at a running back position, there is a plug-and-play mentality where there might be a handful of real game changers. Maybe Leonard Fournette is that guy. But most guys, you can pretty much draft in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, kind of plug them in when they're useful. When they're not, go with somebody else. And look no further than the Super Bowl, where you had Freeman and Coleman in Atlanta, and then in New England, where they never invest draft capital in running backs. A guy like Dion Lewis, they took LeGarrette Blount off the scrap heap, and they just kind of used what they needed out of them to get to a Super Bowl. So I think that the issue is when you get to the running back position in the NFL draft, you better have almost no injury history you better have almost no red flags, because they'll look elsewhere and figure, well, we can get your type of talent, maybe a little bit less, but at a much better cost for us.
Yeah. Hey, Damon, really quickly here in about 45 seconds before we get to a hard break. When the Browns did take Texas A&M's Myles Garrett, did it surprise you only because it was the Browns making that pick and you thought they're going to do something completely crazy and not do what they're supposed to?
I wasn't surprised because they took Myles Garrett. I thought that was basically a no-brainer. I was surprised that I actually thought all three of their picks in the first round were nailed. That never happens with the Cleveland Browns.
Thank you, David. We're having some callers here coming in. Jane Slater is going to join us from the NFL Network out in Frisco. Damon, we thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, bud, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Anytime, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. He is the Damon Amendolara of the A Show. We're back on the Ticket Live Draft Special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services right after this.
The Ticket Live.
Welcome back to the Ticket Live Draft Special presented by AAA Auger Plumbing Services. Aaron Carreño back on set, staying with us here. And let's get back to the Cowboys. No one better to bring in Jane Slater, who covers the team for the NFL Network. Jane, we know you're a very busy person right now, actually doing some work on the network at the same time. So we thank you for taking the time to join the Ticket Live on what's been a very busy stretch for you this morning. Thanks so much.
Anytime to help you, Hector, my old teammate in Tyler, Texas.
Absolutely. So, Jano, you cover the Cowboys. You're embedded there. Want to get your thoughts here on what you saw in round one with Taco Charlton and then what you saw last night with a couple of corners going in rounds 2 and 3.
Well, I talked to a couple of scouts and even other coaches in the NFC, and it seems like the Cowboys have made some really good picks. We'll start with Taco Charlton, the defensive end. This is a guy that's 6'5", 270 pounds, and the most impressive aspect of Charlton's game is his physical build. He's got 34-inch plus arms, and that length they're saying is going to really help him get to the quarterback. He says that he can get to the quarterback in a number of different ways. And when you just think of what Rod Marinelli's been able to do with less, guys like David Irving last year, really the sky's the limit with a guy like Taco Charlton. I thought it was interesting that he said growing up, of course, he was an Ohio State fan, ended up going to Michigan, but that was his team. He didn't have an NFL team. Growing up, his dad groomed him to be a Cowboys fan. His entire room was decked out in Cowboys gear. It's his father's birthday this weekend, so he said this was a bit of an early present for him. Norm, his dad, was at the facility yesterday, just grinning from ear to ear. We'll also talk about the corner that they took with their second pick, number 60. That was Chidobe Awuzie from Colorado. This is what I'm told is a safe pick. This is a guy that's going to be a team guy. He says all the right things. He is clean with a capital C. And he can also play a number of positions in that secondary, everything from corner to free safety to strong safety to nickel. So he was evaluated as more of an inside guy when I talked to another team. So we'll see how the Cowboys utilize him. And then, of course, they went with Jordan Lewis out of Michigan, a former teammate, of course, of Taco Charlton. Both of them have a former coach on this staff that vouched for them. And, you know, again, I talked to an NFC coach this morning that was really high on Jordan Lewis. He, of course, if you're not familiar, has a pending domestic violence case. He's got a trial date set for training camp. A lot of people concerned that that could affect him. The people that I've talked to seem to think that this thing's going to shake out. As it plays out, the woman that is pressing charges is a girlfriend that he's been with for a long time. After investigating some facts in this case, they think that this isn't going to affect him on the field. They think that they'll be able to move forward. This at least was also the evaluation of another team. Lewis, for his part, really defends himself, says this isn't a situation. He says he's innocent. But in terms of just what he brings to the football field, this guy has got sticky hands. Google some of his drill exercises, loves to throw up his hand, get those one-handed passes. Limited teams to 7 catches last season. This could be a really good pick in terms of coverage for the Cowboys.
Hey, Jane, let's talk about every team deals with trade rumors usually around the draft time. And I know Jerry Jones, especially with the Cowboys addressing the secondary with their picks yesterday, and we get in the 4th or 6th round, they're probably going to add some depth at safety or corner again. Talk about the speculation that came up with Orlando Scandrick. I know Jerry emphatically denied any trade rumors. They're trying to move him. Speak on that. Do you have any information on that with Orlando Scandrick and his tenure with the Cowboys?
I do. My colleague Ian Rappaport reported that yesterday. When I reached out to Orlando Scandrick, he said he was shocked, but he said, look, this is outside of his control. He said, if anything, wherever he goes, whether it's with Dallas or with another team, he plans on being productive and he plans on being a starter. Now, Jerry Jones, as you said, shut this down last night, said the report was erroneous. They still considered him a big part of this team moving forward. Of course, he is one of the lone veterans that's got veteran tenureship in that secondary moving forward. So they'd like to have him here. But I did talk to some teams this morning, and now that that report is out there, they are going to be making some calls to the Cowboys. Now, we'll see if what these other teams are offering is enough to move Orlando Scandrick, but I do get the sense he is very frustrated with this situation, did plan on being a part of this team, doesn't like the fact that his name is being floated out there right now as possible trade bait.
All right, we're talking with Jane Slater. You can catch reporting on the Cowboys on the NFL Network. You can also follow Jane on Twitter at Slater NFL. And Jane, as AC here Aaron gets it to ask you a question. Got about a minute and a half before we hit a hard out here.
Yeah, let me just be a fangirl for 1 second. I am a big fan of yours. So this is, I'm kind of like hot and flustered right now. So if you see sweat on the TV side, I'm sorry. But let me just go ahead and ask this. I've heard that the strategies of picking this year has been a little bit different compared to previous years. From what I hear in reports is that Jerry Jones doesn't have his phone on him, is not able to have as much say, making some decisions. He does ultimately have this say, but what's the war room like right now?
Well, the one thing that has changed over the last couple of years is a confidence really in Will McClay and his scouting staff. There's also a consensus. I mean, a lot of this coaching staff has been a cohesive unit for a number of years. They've locked in these coaches with extensions even this year. And when you do that, you essentially all are on the same page. And what they did even before this was a pod system, they were able to go through some of what they called drills in the morning, a drill that they actually had ready for Taco Charlton if he fell to 28 and a guy like J.J. Watt was still there. So all of these picks are unanimous decisions. You're not going to see a lot of infighting in that war room as it pertains to picks that come up on the board. And I think that's really helping them hit the nail on the head. Specifically this year, they have 7 picks. They're up against the cap. They're paying that offensive line a lot of money. Yeah.
Sorry, we got the hard break. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thanks.
Live.
Welcome back to the Ticket Live Draft Special. It's been made possible by AAA Auger Plumbing Services. Professional, reliable, and affordable for over 50 years and never a charge for coming out. AAA Auger, their website is aaa-auger.com. New Spurs Nation magazine is out tomorrow. Catch Melissa's column on Kyle Anderson and the closing of his high school, storied St. Anthony up in New Jersey. Read Jabari's off-topic piece and Nick Moyle's numbers-based look at how big the Spurs bench was in those wins as compared to the losses against Memphis. And in tomorrow's Express News, a busy day, the latest column by Mike Finger, coverage of the Stars preseason opener. Terrence Thomas will have the all-area boys and girls soccer teams, and David Hinojosa is at the UIL Regional Track and Field Meet. It's time for our closing arguments. No one wishes to find themselves in tough times, but if you do, you know who to make your first phone call. Thomas J. Henry, available 24/7. Who do you need protecting you and your family? Fighting for injured victims is what they do best. Call Thomas J. Henry now. Injury attorneys available 24/7, nights and weekends. 656-1000 is a phone number. Again, 656-1000. We talked to Sean Watson earlier, Cal. We come back to him because even as Damon Amendolara of the DA show on CBS Sports, who joined us earlier in the hour, kind of alluded to, the Texans and what they did and moving up to get him kind of still, if not the big storyline, then one of the top 2-3 storylines of the draft. I think everyone's in consensus that he's going to be the guy they've been looking for literally forever in their franchise history. They thought they had that guy with David Carr. Matt Schaub was serviceable, but now that, when they got Brock Osweiler, they thought that maybe he was the guy. But I think he's a guy that we can all think and agree on that he's going to be a guy who's going to, at the very least, be a serviceable, at the very least, a superstar at most. The question is, how soon can we start to expect Deshaun Watson to make an impact?
How soon? He can make an impact, I think. This is a guy that, has played in 2 back-to-back national championship games, a guy that's been on the biggest stage in that championship game with the biggest the closest thing you're going to see to a pro defense when you get on Sundays. in Alabama in the last 2 years, and we've seen the numbers that he put up against Alabama. But I will say how soon, I would say patience. I think there's two questions. If you say impact, I think he can make an impact if he wins the job over Savage in training camp, or he gets, maybe midway through the season and gets to see him. We get to see him then. I think he can make impact plays by rookie. But if we're talking about how close he makes, the Texans a Super Bowl contender, I would say pretty much at least 2 or 3 years off. Because keep in mind, regardless, and we saw it with Dat, and we said there's a reason why if you look at the history of stats, I mean, Dan Marino is technically, and I think technically he did it in his second year, but you hardly ever see a rookie quarterback. Let's say hypothetically he beats Savages out in OTAs and training camp. You see a rookie lead a team, no matter how talented, to the Super Bowl. There's going to be learning curves. And I said it earlier in the show in the first hour, Bill O'Brien's offensive system is very difficult to learn. And he coaches you hard on your quarterbacks, okay? And a lot of that has to come from being spoiled and coaching Tom Brady all those years. And I think Bill O'Brien is growing as a coach. His time at Penn State, what he's done, he'll be entering his third year here with the Texans. I think he'll sit there and understand, like, okay, not everybody's Tom Brady, but I think if you look at Deshaun Watson's backstory, what he's gone through with his mom getting oral cancer, growing up that way. He's been through a tough hardness that I think he can take it. But when you say how he can have an impact, but if we're talking Super Bowl, which a team defensively, they lost some pieces, but they're close when you think of Watt, Clowney, and what they did all season without the Watt, last year. But I think that would say impact, yes, but Super Bowl contender, I would say a few years probably off if he is the starting going forward from day one.
So not this season?
Not this season, no.
Here's where I differ a little bit, even though common sense and quite frankly logic are on your side, right? I just keep pointing to this. They were a playoff team last year, and they've been a playoff team for 4 of the last 6-7 years, right? This is the team that's always in the playoffs. So they're already contenders. If they're contenders with Brock Osweiler, Brandon Whedon, Tom Savage, Matt Schaub, don't you think Deshaun Watson, even as a rookie, can give them as much as those guys did, probably even more?
Yes and
right
no.
Off the bat?
Yes and no. From a pure talent and athletic standpoint and be able to make plays, improvise, yes. But when it comes to reading defenses and getting adjusted, because trust me, I mean, he played Alabama only once out of the schedule. There are some games last year with Clemson that you could go back and look that he didn't kind of, had turnovers was a little bit issue. But when you go against NFL pro-style defense, the speed of the game and the athletes and the DBs and the safeties you play against, it's a whole different level than Saturday. So I see what you're saying, but I still say that you're looking at about 2 years to 3 years away from him saying, like, look, this is the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land in February. That's just my opinion. But I see the angle that you're trying to say, though.
I just keep going back to the playoff game against the Patriots. Osweiler throws 4 picks, and they're still in it in the fourth quarter. Right. Like, they were that close to hanging with the Patriots in Foxborough. Right. But at the end of the day, maybe Dak Prescott just ruined it for everybody. Like, not that that's the norm, but Dak Prescott gave folks a template to believe
you're 100%
that
correct.
It's possible. So in a way, Deshaun
correct.
Watson is almost, victim's too strong a word, but he's almost in a way, whether it's fair or not, in the shadow of the guy right down the highway from him.
You're
now.
100% right. And the people that cover the game, people that are in our business, or people that are close to the field, we know the difference in there's certain cause and effects and tangibles that went into that success. So the average fan is going to try to measure that, like, oh, is he going to have a season like that? That is playing with the best offensive line, bar none, in the NFL, a future Hall of Fame tight end in Jason Witten, a guy like Zeke and Dez. Now, I'll tell you one thing we haven't said. I bet you Hopkins is doing cartwheels finally to get a quarterback with some stature that can throw to him.
No doubt. No one better when you're in a time of need than Thomas J. Henry, the presenting sponsor for our closing arguments, available 24/7. Who do you need protecting you and your family? Fighting for injured victims, what they do best. So call Thomas J. Henry now. Injury attorney is available 24/7 nights and weekends. 656-1000 is that number. Before we go here on our AAA Auger Plumbing Services Draft Special, a thank you to Calvin and the rest of the crew. We'll see you next Saturday.